My name's Patrick Butler, and I'm Sterling's older brother. I have some thoughts I'd like to share. Then Sterling's sisters, Tommy Sue and Christy Marie, would like to say a few things. And then Sterling's best friend Kyle will speak. And after that, anyone and everyone who would like to speak, please feel free to do so. And at the very end, my mom would like to say a few words to wrap up. I'd like to start by acknowledging how Sterling died. Early Sunday, it appears that Sterling overdosed on heroin. We think it was accidental. He was about to begin school at UCCS again. By all accounts, he was really excited. He had just got a new job, and he was about to start both on Tuesday, this past Tuesday. And it felt like a new start for him, something to kind of take his life in a new direction, which he was really excited about. He had been clean for a while, and what we think happened is that he just wanted one more high before he went straight, and it just went bad. I am devastated by Sterling's death. I feel wave after wave of sadness overtake me. About 5 years ago, he had at that point hit rock bottom. He reached out to me for help. He didn't trust himself with time on his hands. He felt he needed to be busy, working right, slide back. He just wanted to be busy, as busy as possible. I suggested that he consider Narcotics Anonymous, which he didn't want to do. But I offered to go with him to every meeting to provide support by standing by his side, which he really liked. So every single night, he would go to, he and I would go to whatever NA meeting we could find. Wherever it was, we'd go that night. If there wasn't one happening, then we'd find an AA meeting. We'd go to that. He then got up early with me every morning to work out at the gym. He wanted to be so tired at the end of the day that all he could do would be to fall in bed, immediately asleep. For the first time, I really understood both how desperately he wanted to stay sober and how incredibly hard it was for him to do so. I'm not sure I would have had the courage he had to keep getting back up time and time again, relapse after relapse. I do not want to lose sight that although he lost his battle with addiction, he courageously fought like hell every moment of every day with everything he had. It just wasn't enough. Today, we're here to commemorate his life. We can both acknowledge his decade-long struggle with addiction, as well as honor him as a whole person, someone who desperately did not want to be defined by that addiction. Chris Murray's quote of Rumi really resonates with me. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. I'd like to have Chris say a few words.
I guess you guys knew how cool Sterling was. I'm Tommy Sue. I'm Sterling's a little bit older sister. I looked at Sterling in recent months and told him that he had a superpower. We have the same superpower. The ability to feel so deeply that at times it is more painful to be awake and conscious. He started to cry. He said nothing, but I saw in his eyes that someone finally had put his struggle into words. Just went over the hill on my 30th birthday last weekend, a couple weeks ago, and kind of spent the day by myself, but I really wanted to spend it with Sterling. So on my birthday, I invited him to go to Patty Jewett and have one of their prime rib dinners, which it's a deal you can't beat. And I was fully intending on paying because I knew that Sterling had been having a hard time financially. When we walked in, he quickly excused himself to the restroom as we sat down, and I didn't think really much of it. So we talked and we laughed. I got defensive, but mostly we were just together. As the meal was wrapping up, the waitress came around the corner with a piece of cheesecake with a candle on it. She told them that it was my birthday. When I asked the waitress for our check, she came around and she handed Sterling the check, and he signed the already paid for receipt. Little bastard. He paid for my meal when he had nothing. And that is the epitome of Sterling. Sterling gave until he had nothing. He also made me the most wonderful birthday present. As you know, our father passed away 5 years ago, and he gave me this giant picture that had pictures of Daddy's land and pictures of Daddy and I, and just things that brought us together as a family. But he wrote this most beautiful note telling me that I was free. It was the best my sister or boy could ever ask for. And I know I'm not the only person in this room that feels this way. I will miss him every single day. So I'm going to leave you with this. Say not in grief, he is no more, but in thankfulness, he was.
Yeah.
I wrote my speech on a piece of paper like a normal person. But then I saw what my siblings were doing, so I quickly had to be organized. Let's see if I can use this technology.
But whoa, 21st century over here.
So I'm Christy Marie. I am another one of Sterling's big sisters. And I've been thinking a lot over what I wanted to share with you today and about special memories and times together growing up and stories that really encapsulated him. But really what I was having trouble with is the thing about our siblings is that they are more than a random collection of memories. They are part of us. They are foundational to who we are. And they are the only ones on the planet who have walked in our shoes. So frankly, I'm not quite sure what I want to say, but I do know that he and I and Tommy Sue and Patrick aren't exactly separatable. And I have been trying over the last few days to tease him out of the weave of our childhood and out of me so that I can tell you specifically about him. But all of it kind of bleeds together, like a painting, like the prettiest watercolor painting you can imagine but can't describe afterwards. C.S. Lewis says, the death of a beloved is an amputation. The Butler Spiers team has a man down, and I just don't know what to do or how to talk about it. Right now, the absence is like the sky. It's spread over everything. One thing I have realized this week, however, in thinking over him, is that being his and Tommy Sue's big sister is the reason I knew that I always wanted to be a mom. That was our relationship. I was a mom. I was really cool, super awesome. We didn't have to pay for anything, but got to help them break all the rules and hide their misdeeds. Because of this, I thought that I knew him, but what I didn't see was his battle. He kept that from me, and I let him. I thought I was respecting his boundaries by letting him openly hide his struggles from me. So today, I feel compelled to talk about this gap in our relationship, because you see, Sterling's problem at its core was not addiction. It was that he was too busy holding on to shame and unworthiness. And so I'm angry. I'm angry at that unworthiness, and I am angry at that shame. And I angry that he felt that he had to hide it. And I'm angry at the cowardice that I let him, and I'm angry at the cowardice I let keep me from telling him all of him was okay with me. Because I knew about this struggle, and I wanted him to know that that was okay with me. As if not going all in with him, because I have been terrified that I was gonna get the call I got on Sunday night. So I thought that if I did not go all in with him, it would make this hurt less. It took his death to teach me that shame derives its power from being unspeakable. So my goal today and going forward is to honor my little brother by speaking up and by showing up and by going all in, the way that I did when we were little. I feel like I loved him halfway over the last few years because I was scared of how bad it would hurt if this happened. So I am making a commitment here that this will fundamentally change how I live and how I love going forward. As a community, we must not tolerate the shadows because our children hang themselves in those shadows. Now I want to be really clear. It is very important that it not seem that I am saying that if I had done this or if I had not done that, he would not be dead. That is narcissistic and it is unhelpful. His journey was his own, and it would be disrespectful to say otherwise. I only wish that I had been as much a part of the end as I was of his beginning. Buddhists say that the essence of Zen can be summed up into 3 words. Not always so. Not always happy, not always together, but not always sad and not always broken. And yet in this case, I hope that that is not completely true. It feels better right now to think that this won't heal. That doesn't feel right to me. I want this wound because there should be a wound when you've lost part of yourself. The challenge of loss and grief is to let it soften us rather than make it more rigid. Rather than make us more rigid and make us more afraid. So there will continue to be a wound, but one that I commit to make me more open and more vulnerable and more wholehearted. And though it may seem counterintuitive, I commit also to the bravery of speaking truth, loving without restraint, and shining a flashlight on shame, so that the people whose lives touch mine are too able to carry a little bit of Sterling with them. And I just want to thank you all for being here. The family is truly, truly overwhelmed. Thank you.
Sorry, a little old school. Hey everyone. So I want to start off today by thanking each and every one of you for being here today to celebrate the life of my best friend, Sterling Spiers. There are many others, both out of state, overseas, had to work that could not be here today, so they've asked me to send everyone here positive vibes and nothing but unconditional love. This moment right now is one of the hardest things I've ever done and probably ever will have to do. Saying goodbye to the best friend I ever had and ever will have. That's what we're all here for today though, is to say goodbye and start the healing process. We all have to do this at our own pace, our own way, and in our own time. For this reason, I want to focus my speech today not so much on healing or grieving, I'll talk about that in the end a little bit, but rather to celebrate and share the good that Sterling brought to this world. One of the things Sterling and I always found so comical was when we'd run into people we hadn't seen in a really long time, usually back from high school, and their reactions were pretty much identical. What? You? And you? Friends? How? How did that happen? We usually honestly just messed with people and made up some crazy story because we thought it was hilarious. You know how it really happened though? A bus stop in Longmont. Yep, doesn't sound real exciting, does it? Now you see why we came up with all those crazy stories. His street bike broke down at the time and was having major issues. He was stranded in Longmont where the bike broke down, and he knew I was in Greeley about 45 minutes away going to college. He got my phone number through a mutual friend. I remember it was like I remember it like it was yesterday. I was setting up my first laptop in my room when I got the call. Hey Kyle, it's Sterling from high school. My ride is broken and I'm stranded in an awful town not far from you. There are so many creeps around. Can you please come save me possibly? I was a bit thrown off guard for a minute as I hadn't spoken to him in a couple years. But I replied, sure, why not? See you in 45 minutes. I never did ask him why he called me of all people. But a month later, we were inseparable. That's it. That's how we met. A bus stop. Sure, not the most exciting thing you will hear me tell. That's the truth. The days, months, and years that followed, though, the word exciting doesn't even begin to describe Sterling or he and I's friendship. As many of you know, Sterling always liked to keep a low profile. He considered his privacy sacred, which is partly what I liked about him so much, because I'm the same way. People who keep a low profile are often extremely misunderstood and hard to read, which is exactly how we like it. Today, though, I want everyone to know and understand the real Sterling and the qualities that made him such an amazing person. Because I'm not up here today to read you an entire novel, I want to focus purely on those great qualities, as the stories and adventures Sterling and I had could probably fill 10,000 books. They'll never show up in those books, though, as those memories belong strictly to Sterling and myself. Love. He may not have always been the best at showing it in the ways that most people would have liked it, but I'm not sure I've ever met anyone with so much love to give. Like all good things, his love was not easy to obtain. But once you did, it made you feel invincible. It's not that he didn't have enough love to give, it's that he had way too much love to give. But you had to earn that. You had to earn it. He didn't hand it out to just anyone, because he only wanted those who worked for it and earned it to actually feel it. Once you felt his love, it was like winning the lottery. All you could say to yourself was, how the hell did I get so lucky? Passion. Not the easiest trait to find in people nowadays, but it's out there. It is my firm belief that all Sterling really ever wanted to see is people smile. He would go to absolute insane lengths to make that happen. He was so motivated to mold himself into the closest thing you could find to the perfect person, and then translate that into helping others become the person they wanted to be. Now, patience was not his strong suit, and he'd be the first to admit that, but he could not wait to get that diploma and then be all he could be. I always told me he reminded me of Nike. Just do it. And he did. The last time we hung out, we were on an airplane heading to Idaho to pick up my new car. And what was he doing on the airplane? Computer programming practice problems for a class that did not start until January of 2016. And he was doing it off an hour of sleep. Who else in here has done that? Exactly. And it was all for his pursuit of happiness so he could make others happy. Which leads me to the next. Humor. Want to hear a joke? You're going to have to ask Sterling. It's a good thing the Motion Picture Association of America does not rate jokes we tell, because they would have to create an entirely new rating system, because rated R was child's play. His jokes, his experiences, and especially his stories would literally be so hilarious that I and anyone else that heard them would be laughing so hard we were almost crying. He could tell the most crude, politically incorrect joke or story, and he'd have everyone in the room rolling on the floor laughing. It all went back to his passion. When he saw laughs, he saw smiles, and those smiles meant absolutely everything to him. And finally, loyalty. The old saying goes, a dog is a man's best friend. Well, I'm here to tell you today, BS. Sterling was a man's best friend. Remember how I said once you earned his love, it felt like winning the lottery? Imagine winning the lottery on a daily basis. I have never come across anyone with the loyalty Sterling gave the ones he loved. Finding 100% loyalty in people nowadays is like finding a politician with morals. How do I know this? Because Sterling and I had many conversations about this. All both he and myself ever wanted was pure loyalty. That trait alone was one of the biggest reasons we were inseparable and what drew me to him in the first place. Some people find this trait in marriage, some in animals, but Sterling and I found it in friendship. Want to know how much I trusted Sterling? If you're easily offended, now would be the time to close your ears. I once told him if I ever got married, his job as my best man was to spend the entire next day after my wedding in a locked room with my wife. And every 15 minutes, he had to ask her if she wanted to sleep with him. Now, why would I do that? To test my wife's loyalty.
Who wouldn't want to sleep with them?
He would never do it. He'd just tell me if she said yes or no. There isn't another person on this planet that I would even sort of trust to pull that off. But Sterling, he was truth. He was the definition of loyalty in a world built on lies. The amount of examples I could give on his loyalty are endless, but again, I'm not here today, nor do I have the time to read you an entire novel. I know that's only 4 qualities, but this isn't a seminar and time is limited. But I just want everyone, and I want everyone who wants to speak to have that chance. So, before I wrap up my speech here today, I want to close this speech out by going off script and telling you all something I've become a bit of an expert on this year. So, 2015 has, it was not Sterling's year, it has not been my year. This is the 4th time I've had to do this year. I've become a bit of an expert on the grieving process. Everyone here has different ways of grieving at different speeds, in different ways, and I can tell you right now, for some people it's going to take a really long time. For some people, they'll block it off, it'll come up later. You know, everybody has their different ways of handling this. The best way to get through it is just to support those people and support their way of getting through this. There may be some of you in here that don't know how to get through this yet, or maybe don't exactly know how to grieve or how to let your emotions go. So, since this is the 4th time I've done this year, I will share with you how I do it, just in case you'd like to try it. Let this hit you. Let this hit you really, really hard. Do what you need to do. Lose your cool, cry your eyes out, take a vacation from work, take a week off, lay in bed, do whatever you need to do, but let this hit you. Do not put it on the back burner and pretend it doesn't exist. Because the sooner you tackle this, the sooner you will get over it. And I know right now it feels like it's never going to go away, and it feels like it's always going to be here. But time can be our enemy, but it can also be our best friend. With time heals everything. And if there's one thing that Sterling would want, it's for nobody. He would not want anyone in this room to give up or do something to themselves. He would want people to move on, and he would want people to remember him, but to carry his memory over into your life and be all you can be. And that's how to grieve if you don't know how. And the last thing I want to say is just to Sterling, you're irreplaceable. I'm never gonna meet anyone like you ever again. And it was only a little over a decade, but you blessed my life beyond what you could ever imagine. And I know you're not here anymore, but you're always gonna be with me. And I'm always gonna love you. And I'll never be mad at you, ever. Thank you.
So at this point, I'd like to open it up for anyone of you that would like to stand up or just in place, say a few words or a story or thoughts about Sterling. And we have some other family here too, so I want everyone to feel included. Yeah, go ahead.
For those who don't know me, I'm Sterling's brother-in-law, Tommy Susan's husband. In Sterling, I actually found kind of a kindred spirit. He was smart, he was funny, he was irreverent, and he was the only person I met that's as big as a smart ass as I am. And he loved going rounds with me over it. I wasn't blessed to be raised with a little brother, but in Sterling I found some things I thought of as like he were my own. I come from a rather large ethnic family, and being so, we're loud, we're obnoxious, we fight hard, we're fiercely loyal, and we love hard. And I saw those same qualities in Sterling. And the best thing I could say is because I loved him as if he were my own flesh and blood. I've always carried him. I've always carried a piece of him with me. Thank you.
So Sterling and I are out about 5 years ago, downtown. He wasn't drinking. I can't remember, I think Tommy Sue might have been there. Christy Marie might have been there. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this girl walk by. She's a good looking girl. She's walking by like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, you got something going on here, buddy. She's denying it. He's like, hey. 10 minutes later, he's talking to this girl. She tells him she's Pakistani. The first words out of his mouth are, so, you don't seem like you're poor. She must be a drug dealer or a terrorist. Somehow she took a little offense to that. At least I thought she did. About a half hour later, she's putting her number in his pocket. I can't believe no one stood up here and talked about how good looking this kid is. I mean, seriously, this guy's good looking. I had a friend of mine, she's a really good friend of mine back from the 24-hour fitness days. I used to work there, I didn't work out there. She's telling me about this guy. She says, well, all of our girlfriends like to get together and go hiking in Manitou, and then we come back, we stop at Jake and Telly's. And we order drinks so we can stare at the bartender. His name's Sterling. My wife says, that's my little brother. She goes, oh my God, that's your little brother. He is a beautiful man. I got to second some things, you know, coming into the family. I was lucky enough to marry his older sister. And my name's Derek, by the way. That kid's devilish wit and his good looks were dangerous. And something that he was just, his personality was amazing. He gets that from his mom. If those of you that knew his dad, same sense of humor. I was going to start off with a joke about a black guy, a Mexican, and Jewish rabbi, but I wanted to go home with my wife tonight. So Sterling would have liked it, though. It's the kind of humor he had. Sterling didn't let me in at first. Because of that loyalty. And it wasn't personal, it was his loyalty to his family. I know he loved them all, but he loved that girl right there. And she kept little mementos around the house. I felt like I knew him. And when you have some distance between you, you get that older sibling view that you guys share. And
we started working together at 24 Hour Fitness, and he came in and he asked me, he said, teach me the secrets about sales. Teach me how to be a good salesman. I said, well, there's two things you need to know. Number one, you have to break down sales resistance, and to me, the shortest distance between any two people is laughter. So if you can get them laughing, they're gonna relax, you'll be all right. So the next thing is no matter what, sales is an honorable profession. You always be authentic. You have to be authentic. And it wasn't until I worked with him for a couple months that I realized I was describing that kid. That was him. He could break down anybody's walls. He was fiercely loyal. And he finally let me in, and that time I'll always treasure was the same time he was working out with you. And he's just, I don't like the word natural born salesman, but that guy was. He was incredible at it. I left and came back and he was ruling the place. He knew how to talk to people, and he knew how to talk to them in a way that just, I mean, come on, everybody knows. If you need anything right now, Sterling was here, he's got a guy. If you need your iPhone jailbroken, or if you need your car fixed, Sterling's got a guy. That's how he knows people, though. And once he knows you and lets you in, he's yours for life. Die hard to his family, he loved them so much. And I know for a fact, everybody in here can look to the next person next to them, and you'd be surprised to hear stories about their struggles and what they faced. I'm here to second things that have been said. That kid was a fighter. I look at the things that he went through when he was a young man, 17, and I don't know how that didn't crush him earlier. He fought and he fought and he fought to the end, and that's the way people need to remember it. Go tell an irreverent, maybe a little bit racist joke today. Laugh and think about it straight. He'd like it. He'll be smiling down on you. I don't know where he's at right now, but I'd like to think him and his dad are cracking jokes about us all right now.
I know I already spoke, but I just want to say that Sterling and I grew up downtown Colorado Springs, and we didn't have any water pressure to mow a lawn, so we just had like dirt. And Sterling would get in trouble. My mom would ground him, and you're grounded, and then Sterling would go over and he would make a deal with her. And so he would say, Mom, I promise I will mow the yard for 2 weeks if you let me off of grounding. Now, I don't know what's about my mom, but Sterling could talk her into mowing a yard we didn't have. So it wasn't just, Sterling at 21 being able to sell something. He sold us his heart and our, his little buzzard. So.
Who else? Who else like to say a few words about Sterling? Or? Yeah, Micah.
We need numbers. 1, 2.
So, I'm Mike Toder. You guys may not know me, but Patty and Tom took me to their house when I was in a very bad place. At the time, Sterling was in Australia. And it's kind of a funny story because he was actually stuck and didn't know how to get home at the time. And I remember going through that and then hearing the stories about him and seeing this man's wit and ability to figure out a problem even though it seemed impossible when he got home. And when I found out he was coming down, it was kind of awkward for me. It was kind of like, well, he doesn't know me and I'm in his house and I didn't know how this was going to go. And the second I shook his hand when I met him, I knew I had a friend for life. Him and I shared a very similar history, although separate. We could talk about something that I couldn't talk to anybody else about. But from him I learned how to be loyal, what to be a friend was. And I moved away roughly 3 years after I met him. He called me about a year and a half ago. And we talked for 3 hours on the phone. It was like I just saw him yesterday. It's hard for me to say, but I know that even though he may not be here with us in person, his loyalty will never fade, and he will still be with us, and I know he'll be with us no matter what.
So I'm Joy, work at Jake and Telly's. First of all, whoever knows that stupid joke that Sterling used to tell about the dead frog on the leash.
Oh my gosh.
If somebody will please write that down for me, I would so appreciate it. Because I can never remember that one, but it was always my favorite one.
He sent an email to somebody.
Did he?
Yes,
that
I will
would be
find
great.
that.
One of my favorite stories about Sterling is that he's such a great busser. He worked with us. I know he worked with us for almost a year, and nobody wanted him to become a server because we loved having him as our backup.
Is that the reason?
Yes.
Okay.
He was the #1 guy that you wanted as your backup when you were waiting tables or bartending or managing or whatever it was. We decided that we needed to hire some servers, and Jake was doing interviews. And Sterling had already gone to Jake and said, I really think that it's time. I think I put in my duty and I want to become a server. And Jake said, no, we need you as a busser. You're perfect where you are. We love you. You're staying where you are. The day that Jake was doing interviews, Sterling, that little shit, showed up in a shirt and tie with his resume. And he said, give me the opportunity to prove to you why I'm going to be the best man for the position. And by God, we all stood there and went, oh my God, he's right. There's nothing. We have to do this. His determination was amazing. It really was. It was inspirational. And it's so hard to know that he lost this battle. But I know that he knows that we were all with him through it all. He knows how much he was loved. I wrote this in a card to the family, but I don't know who's going to get the card or whatever. And the more that I think about all of us being a family, I just kind of want to read it to everyone. My heart breaks for your family and for all of us who loved and adored Sterling. He's left an immeasurable void in many people's hearts. His beautiful smile, quick wit, and bright light was a gift to our staff and all of our customers at Chicken Telly's. Dapper. That was a word I've never used in my life before I met Sterling. Same. Dapper. Dapper, charismatic, friendly, and caring. Sterling was always willing to lend a helping hand. I watched him help people move. I watched him help people study. One of his greatest gifts, though, was that he helped people feel better about themselves. He touched so many hearts in this world, and we're all better people for having him in our lives. He's going to be greatly missed by so many. And I pray that your memories of him will bring you some sort of comfort to your family in his days, weeks, and years ahead.
It's me again. So I found the joke.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh God, you're going to tell the joke.
yeah, I have to. Okay. Those with little children. Yeah, with little children. Earmuffs, please. Okay. A kid walks into a whorehouse with a dead frog. He goes to the front desk and sets his dead frog up on the counter. The man at the desk says, "We don't allow kids here." The kid puts a $100 bill on the counter, and the man replies, "Okay, what do you want?" The kid says, "I want to have sex with the girl here who has the most STDs I can get." Herpes, he said. "We don't have women like that here. Sorry, buddy." The kid put another $100 on the table. "Okay, kid." All the way down the hall, last door on the left. The kid comes out of the room after a while, and as he's walking out the front door, the man stops the kid. "Hey, kid, why in the world would you do that? You just basically just killed yourself." the kid looks up at him and says, "I'm going to go home and sleep with my babysitter. My parents are going to come home and my dad will sleep with the babysitter." My dad will then go and come home and sleep with my mom. My dad will leave for work, and in the morning the mailman will come, and my mom will sleep with the mailman, and that's the mother trucker that ran over my dead frog. I know.
I'm really not good at this, so. My name's McCartney. I'm Sterling's cousin, and I have had the pleasure of knowing him for my whole life, I guess. I live in Kansas City with my mother, and so I only got to spend time with him when I came out to visit my dad, but those were some wonderful times for sure. If anyone knows my dad, you know that we have family living in and out of his house constantly, because that's just the kind of guy he is. So I would come out and visit, and more times than one, Sterling was living with us. And a few times specifically, he was living with my dad, and I got to come out, and immediately we were like peanut butter and jelly. You know, I hadn't seen him since I was a little kid when we went to Garden of the Gods and ran around with Tommy Sue and running down the mountains getting yelled at because it was dangerous. But a few years later we got to reconnect, and I remember just staying up all night long talking, and he introduced me to house music, which if any of you don't know what that is, it's music that just drove my dad crazy. So we listened to it all night long. He would make me little CD mixtapes, you know, back in the day when we actually had CDs still. And I would go home, and we would FaceTime for hours and text, and we didn't lose connection. And I would come back, and he would still be there, and we just kept that friendship for a really long time. And I remember specifically one time when I was on the little trolley in the airport at DIA going back to my flight to Kansas City. Daddy was standing there with me, and of course I was texting Sterling, and Daddy looks at me and he goes, "You know, Sterling really cares about you, McCartney." And I just looked at my dad and I said, "I know. I care about him a lot too." And we just had this awesome connection. He was my favorite. I feel like I can say that for everybody. But he was my favorite. One time we were driving around and he got emotional. He said, "McCartney, don't you dare ever drink and drive. I don't care where you are, I don't care what time it is, but you call me and I will come get you." And I live 650 miles. But I knew he would do it. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do this. He loved really hard. And I know he had a lot of pain and a lot of struggle, but he doesn't anymore. And he promised me he would care for me and you know, take care of me like he said, and now he can just watch over it from above. And I'm so thankful that I got to know him in that way.
First time I met Sterling was my sophomore year, his freshman year in high school. I was actually on the basketball team with Ben, and Sterling came, you know. He was going to come to Manitou, and I mean, he sucked. He sucked. He made summer so much fun, you know. Big old laugh and everything. And, when we were young, you know, that tragic accident happened, and we got tattoos together, and, you know, we always had that, you know, blood brothers or tattoo brothers, you know, and I was there, you know, through a lot of the beginning of that, and he was there for me anytime I came back into town from college or the Army, and he was always there, you know, no matter what. If I needed a shirt, I have plenty of Sterling's clothes at home right now. You know, wow. One of my darkest times, you know, a couple of years ago, my dad brought me back to Colorado, and you know, my dad went to Jake and Telly's and was having dinner, and Sterling happened to be their server. You know, and Dad and him started talking, and Sterling's like, if Adam needs a job, just tell him to bring him the resume to Jake and Telly's, and he's got a job. And I've been working there for 2 years now. And Sterling's always been more than just a friend to me. He's been a brother. Like everyone said, you know, he's one of the most loyal people I've ever met in my entire life. You know, his dad bought him a bus ticket, and he came to way out in Emporia, Kansas, to live with me for a couple of weeks, you know, and I've never seen someone get so many people pissed off at him in a short trip. But again, like everyone said, as with Sterling, you know, you either loved him or you hated him, and if you didn't understand him, that's because he didn't let you in. You know, you had to earn that loyalty. And, he's gonna be missed, but you know, he's making an emphasis. You know, Sterling was always a fighter. You know, and he's gonna help me with my fights through the rest of my life. Just, you know, knowing Sterling, he was a great friend.
Thank you for saying that. Who's next?
I have something. So, among his many qualities, Sterling was quite the matchmaker. He introduced me to my husband. So he says it was on purpose, it was not.
He just wanted to take credit for it.
Yes, he really did. He wanted so hard to take credit for it, which it was an accident. It was so pleasant. She's wonderful. It's really hard to think about, you know, my really special memories falling in love with my husband, because they all involve Sterling, every single one of them. Not to be weird. Like the least creepy way that could have been said. Sterling was also really good at twerking. He was a wonderful twerker.
You never twerked. I'm his sister. That would be awkward.
Either, only with my husband.
Oh. That would be awkward too.
So even though
It was great.
I would make it abundantly clear that I would be fine if they weren't twerking in my kitchen, Sterling would just respond with, "You know you like it." He wasn't wrong.
I did not know this.
Gonna miss that guy.
I gotta tell you guys about when we did a little 8-man trip, a couple girls too. But we went to Moab, Utah. It was supposed to be a 2-night, 3-day canoe trip. Sterling, on day 2, refused to stop, and what he called fake Moab. He's like, there's no way we're staying and camping here because it was a man-built camping site. So he made us trek on. We reached the end of the river way too early. And Sterling sees the biggest cliff there was. I don't know if you guys get a chance on Facebook to see this. Curtis posted it. That kid was fearless, brave, and God, we're surprised he didn't die that day. Because that was the scariest thing we thought we were going to see. That kid did not have a care for it. He just wanted to give one last hurrah for Moab. And that kid was the best. I love him.
Don't forget about his test he did before throwing the boulders off first.
Yeah, his test for the water was throw a rock off the cliff to test how deep it was.
Who's next? Anyone else? All right. Hey, come on.
Sterling was my dear friend. I've known him ever since my mom started working at GeniusDen. He's a dear friend of mine ever since. And every time I had a day off from school and my mom had to work, I'd walk into the kitchen, and the first thing I saw was Sterling's smile. It's always a good part of my day. And every time I went into that kitchen, he'd be one of the first people to come up to me, say hi, do anything. He was one of the most honorable, most loyal, nicest people I ever have known and ever will know.
Good job, Jay. Good one.
So I'm Sterling's mother, and I got kind of an education today. The thing about him being loyal is really, really huge. I would try to get in there and ask him about people and get the real scoop, you know, what do you really think? And he would never say anything unkind or demeaning about anyone who was his friend. And I just love that about him. I mean, I knew he was not kicking me under the bus if he's not kicking anybody else under the bus. The loyalty I'll miss hugely. There's a lot of ways. I have 4 children. I love all of them dearly, dearly.
Oh, here it comes. She's admitting it.
Finally, she's admitting it. So, I was reading a book about Jenny Jerome Churchill, and somebody asked her, what was the big deal about your son Winston, that you knew he would be prime minister someday? And she said, Winston is interesting. And I am here to tell you, Sterling was interesting. As a mother, as a teacher, as all the things that I have seen in life, I always said, say what? What? When it came to him. He just had a whole different way of looking at life, and it was so funny. I mean, just like his dad, it always made me laugh. I'm not, I could go on and on to tell you all the things that, the girls that would call him when he was 13, and I mean, like 400 times a day. One day, 400 times, one girl, it was, we knew we had a situation that was. I want to pause here because when you're raising children, and especially like McCartney said, people are living in and out, all of this. My brother Paul, right here, he was with Paul a lot very recently. Also when Sterling was 4 and Tommy Sue was 6 and Christy Marie and Patrick, Paul and Joe, right there at the camera, were enormously forming their personalities. And Ben, back there, Ben, raise your hand. Ben is all very quiet, but you're 3 years older, 4 years older than Sterling?
4.
4. Profound amount of stuff went on between Ben and Sterling that developed the humor and developed the understanding. Those two brothers, they're stepbrothers, but they were brothers. Of course, Christy Marie, in many ways, was right with me raising these two little ones and crafted. I say all this because he understood people with all of these different people. Where's Cindy? Cindy and Rebecca. Cindy, where are you? No? She's gone.
Marco.
Marco. Cindy and Rebecca are here. They were hugely influential as older stepchildren. This is why he loved people. He wanted to be the center. As the youngest of 8 children, he really, when Kyle says this, it was absolute love. There was a problem. He loved heroin more. And I want to say, as a takeaway, 2 things. Number 1, he is at peace and he is at joy. And I know he wants all of us to be filled with peace and filled with joy every time we hear his name. And also think of a funny joke that he says. A dead frog. I don't even like that joke.
Sorry.
Number 2, I know this, I'll give you this much information, but no more. We're working closely with the narcotics team in Colorado Springs because we have all of his texts of every